What is the number one reason why designers struggle to turn what they love into a profitable business? How do you logistically make the jump from hourly to value-based pricing? How do you get ahead of clients shopping your services and products? Should you make the sales and onboarding process easier for you or for the client? How do you price your value? Meet Lynne Pant. She's joining us today to answer these questions and so many more. Be sure to grab your notebook and pen because this conversation is packed, and you will likely want to change your pricing model after you hear it. Michelle is the CEO of the award-winning interior design firm, ML Interiors Group, which started in 2008 and has grown her firm into a sizable force. When not chasing a 5-year-old around the house and trying to find 5 seconds to throw on some lipstick and mascara, I feel you, Michelle. She shares what she has learned with others. Make sure and stick around as well for the coaching corner at the end of the conversation. Hey, Michelle, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Katie, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Oh my gosh, I could say the same thing. We love it. I was just saying to our producer, Leah, who's fabulous, I'm like, Fridays are fun. Fridays with Michelle, fabulous.
Yeah,
So
all we need is a cocktail in our hand.
Oh my gosh, I know. I wish I could add like a little something special to this.
I'm very hydrated with my water, but that's okay. You know, sober curious.
I feel that. I know, right? It's so true. I was like, how can I drink this much water and have my skin still look ragged and wrinkled and all the things? I'm like, we're hydrating internally, people.
I'm going to say a big fat whatever on that.
Oh, you're too kind. Right back at you. And I'm so excited to have you on today to talk pricing because I think this is the number one thing designers struggle with. And you've done a fabulous job in your business of cracking the code.
Well, thank you. I won't say it's perfect, but it definitely works well for me and the people I've coached on it.
Yes, I totally agree. So let's talk about it. Designers who are struggling making profit, what is the number one reason why you are seeing designers struggle to take what they love and turn it into a profit-making endeavor unapologetically?
I think there's 2 components to this. And one is still working on the hourly model.
Yeah.
And usually not billing for all of the hours that they work. Plus, you kind of top off when you're good at your job. You're faster, so you make less money. So there's that. And then also not selling furniture with a profitable margin.
Yes.
So I think those 2 go hand in hand.
I so agree with you. I think that concept, you always hear it in the medical world, but you're not paying me for the work I'm doing. You're paying me for the work I have done because there are efficiencies that come with time. And we've all designed how many bathrooms. At this point, you can probably design a bathroom in your sleep with one arm tied behind your back, right?
Exactly.
Which is why you push a different model. Tell us about the model that you have found works for your business.
So my team at ML Interiors Group, we used to work on an hourly basis and it was a nightmare. One, clients thought that they could negotiate the hourly rate.
Makes me cringe.
And then we become a commodity because they're just looking for a good deal. And then of course we didn't bill for all of the hours spent. Like, how do you bill a client for time you think about them when you're in the shower? I mean, that's just kind of awkward, right? But you're thinking about the project when you're making
my
dinner.
Legs and I thought about your bathroom.
Exactly.
And awkward, yeah.
Yeah. So what we have done and what I teach now in my program is it's a flat fee. And when you think about this, Katie, you can go back even to say your cell phone bill. Remember, we used to be charged by the number of minutes that we used.
Great analogy.
And so you never knew exactly what your bill was going to be. I think clients felt the same way. And then as a business owner, my cash flow was difficult to anticipate. So when we do a flat fee, clients are just ecstatic. They really dig it because you say, here's the design fee. It's not going to be any more. It's not going to be any less. This is what it is. You take it,
no
you
surprises.
Like it. Right. And so that's what we've done. And I'll tell you, it has been a game changer for the design fees. And I can predict my income from a
Yep.
cash flow standpoint simply based on the design fees. And the clients are like, well, that might be a little bit more than what I was expecting, but at least now I know I'm not going to get an invoice every 2 weeks. And what in
Yes.
the heck? It took you how many hours to do what? Because
That's
then they
such a
also want
key
to
point.
see.
Right. Well, and I don't think they understand because we all don't know what we don't know,
Hmm.
how many hours actually go into producing quality designs, quality
Right.
renderings, intentional thought, appropriate heights, elevations, an
Hmm.
actual set of plans someone can build from.
Well, and even the design domino effect. You change one thing and it
Mhm.
might just, take on a completely different
Yes.
personality in that room.
Yes. Yes. So, how do we go when you went to flat fee, huge transition point based on square footage, based on did you look at your KPIs over the last year and pull your metrics, or how did you logistically make
Yeah.
that switch? Because I feel like most designers are on hourly. And to
Hmm.
your point, which I think if you guys didn't hear this was so critical, if you have clients wanting to negotiate your rates, this is why you really need to consider this model.
Absolutely. We did. So I tried a few things,
Yeah.
honestly. This was just the final iteration of what we landed on. And basically what I had been doing is I was trying
Mm.
to go through, I knew that I wanted to do a flat fee. So what I was doing is I was just trying to compile every single component of the design and assign out an hourly time frame to it. And that
Sure.
just became so incredibly cumbersome and
Yeah.
laborious for new projects. We took the square footage model based on a
Mm.
conversation with a builder because he
Ah,
was talking, this is what I charge per square foot. It just like one of those light bulb moments. And it was
yeah.
like, oh, well, if they're already talking in square footage, why
Right.
can't we talk in square footage as well? And so we
Mhm.
did go back and we took some of the data that we had been tracking hourly and projects. And
Mhm.
while we didn't have we kind of had to Frankenstein together some of the square footage
Yeah.
on different parts of different projects. And then
Sure.
we just started coming up with a range and testing
Yeah.
it and increasing it and
Nice.
increasing it and increasing it over the course of the years and really just tweaking it based on client feedback, based on,
Yeah.
oh, well, we didn't charge enough for that particular project.
Hmm.
And oh, we look at this is how, and then you just back into the hours. Like, okay, so this project took a lot longer than what we charged for. Sometimes you're the bug, sometimes you're the windshield. And so we just had to do a
I
postmortem
love
on
you. Oh my gosh, that's
on
great.
all of the projects. So, and then we tweak and we tweak and we tweak, and then we came up with the model, and that's what we do at ML
Yeah.
Interiors Group and in our program.
And I find, how do you calculate for this? Because there are clients that you see coming and you're like, I see you. You're going to be high maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're going to be high maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a different price point for high maintenance.
We call it the PETA pricing.
Yep. Pain in the ass tax.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So you do the same.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because you just know there's going to be those people. So you're still
Mhm.
making accommodations for potentially the size of the project and also the personality of the client.
And we also have it built into our contract. So getting,
Oh,
a little bit off topic but
please do.
adding to it is in our contract, we have, we are, this price includes X number of visits to the project site.
Yeah, it's still got to be
Um,
quantifiable.
but if we need to go out there more, let's just say something's going off the rails or somebody's calling or whatever, then we'll go out
Mm,
there. So we'll go out there as often as we need to. But it
mhm.
also allows for up to X number of site visit requests by the client.
Nice.
Because this actually came from what was her name? It was Elizabeth's sister, Megan. Her name was Megan.
Yeah.
And no, it wasn't her. It was another client. It was another client. But yeah, I get distracted. It was basically, hey, can you come out and take a look at this grout? I think it might. I think it might be a little bit too gray. Can you take a picture of it, please, and just send it to me? No, I need
Right.
you to come out. It was just I had a string of these bored housewives that just needed
Right.
a friend. or company.
Oh,
And it's like,
this is why I got into commercial. I'm like, I can only have so many cups of coffee with you and
yeah.
hear about the misery that is your marriage, even though you're married to a doctor making an insane amount of money, before I'm
Uh-huh.
ripping my hair out.
Yes. And so we work that in. Now there are going to be
Smart.
individuals and we have different benchmarks and so forth that say you have to make decisions quickly or
Yeah, you
whatever the
got to
case may
have
be.
that.
But we do still have the PITA pricing. And in fact, we just got a client who said we were too expensive. And I was like, oh, thank the Lord,
Yeah,
because
we didn't want
I
them.
built in that PITA factor, that little birdie in the gut that said, we just dodged a bullet. And
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
often do you celebrate when somebody says no?
Yeah. And if you're not, it means your pricing isn't right. You aren't
Hmm.
listening to your intuition enough, or you don't know your target market well enough, and you need to sit in that space for a hot minute
Right.
because you should not only celebrate, but like even before you get to the celebration, you should feel comfortable and confident enough
Hmm.
to be able to say no to a potential
Absolutely.
client.
Yes, and that's one of the best feelings. And I've
Oh,
told clients in
yes.
the past,
Yes.
we're not going to be the best resource for you. I don't want to embarrass myself and
Mm-hmm.
disappoint you. And they've thanked us for
Mm-hmm.
that. And I'm like, well, that's
Mm-hmm.
just the way I felt. And this other one might have been okay. Part of my team thought they'd be okay. I wasn't so sure. So we just
Yeah.
built in the PETA factor, and that's okay. We've got some other really badass projects lined up.
Yeah. And like, well, the universe
People we
sorts it
love.
out. Yeah.
Yes,
And people you want to work with.
absolutely.
Where else in the pricing model? You mentioned furniture.
Yes.
That is so
Ah.
legit. If you were designing and you were not selling furniture, this next part is for you.
But let's also talk about selling furniture that is only sold to the trade.
Agreed.
So I was just talking to somebody the other
So you
day.
don't get shopped.
Right. And even if you do get shopped, we'll talk about that because I have that in my contract as well. Um,
Yep.
so if you're new in the industry, selling furniture is not necessarily going and getting the 20% discount from Pottery Barn
Thank you.
and charging your client
Yes.
retail there. So it's literally having your resale certificate, your business, your EIN number, all of these things that are establish you as a business, and you set up
Yes.
accounts where you buy wholesale
Hmm.
from vendors who will not sell to the public. And
You
then you
become
turn
a
around.
distributor.
Yes, you sell it to your
Yes.
client. And I think
Yes.
part of selling it to the client is also telling them that's what you're doing.
Yep.
Is telling your client, "Hey, here's my revenue, here's where my profit comes from. Here's how I stay in business. The design fees and
Mm.
selling the furniture."
Yep.
And when you're straightforward with the client, because a lot of times they'll
Mm.
ask for part of your discount because they've read that that's feasible, or because somebody down the road charging $75 an hour who does it as a hobby
Yeah.
has this and they pass it on to their clients. Well, that's not a way to be profitable.
No.
And so the thing is you can buy it 50% off of retail, 60% off of retail, 40% off of retail. It just
Yeah.
depends on the vendor and your volume.
Hmm.
So that has been just another game changer when we, because I used to be the ones who was going to Home Goods and, oh, I'm going to sell
Yeah.
this for more. Like it says it should be this. I'm going to buy it at this, and then I would sell it. I thought I was making money. And then somebody mentioned wholesale, and I was like, what is that? And the whole world just opened up.
120%. And what
Hmm.
most people don't realize too is when you walk into a standard furniture store, the
Hmm.
average markup is 300%. So if you're walking into that big box furniture store and you see a chair for 300, odds are they're paying $100 for it at most. It's
Hmm.
a 300%. Why are you giving up that margin? This is your
Right.
opportunity to capture that. And then I want to talk about the getting shop thing in a minute too and getting
Hmm.
that into the contract. But I feel like most designers are afraid. They're like, Michelle, you said EIN, you said I have to get a retailer certificate,
Hmm.
I have to get like, and these terms can seem really scary, but
Absolutely.
this is also takes us back to one, go find an amazing CPA. And we'll
Hmm.
link to that in the show notes so you can see how to have that conversation if you need help walking through this. But it is a lot less scary than you think.
Well, I remember the first time I ever heard of an EIN, because I started my business just thinking, oh, this should be easy, right? Foolish me.
We
Foolish,
don't know what
foolish
we
me.
don't know.
I was standing in the CVS
Oh,
here
that's
in
awesome.
Dallas, and I was on the phone with somebody saying you need to have an EIN number. And I was like, oh, okay. And then like I hung up with, and I think it was a vent, I don't know what it was, but I can tell you where I was, I can picture it. And the feeling that was in me was this of sheer panic. It's like, I
Yeah,
have no idea what this is. So here I am standing there with a little red, basket hanging off my arm, and I had this feeling of anxiety because I'm sure I
totally.
had some sort of deadline, because when you're just starting out you don't know anything, so everything takes twice as long. So I'm trying
That's
to
so
accomplish
true.
something, and it's like you're moving it through sludge. So then I'm Googling, what is an EIN number and where do I get it? So an EIN number is an employee identification number, I believe, employer
Yep.
identification number. And even if you're not employing people, you can simply apply for it, but it's kind of the foundation of your business in order to get a bank account, in order to get a resale certificate, things along that line. So,
Especially if you don't want it linked to your social security number, which is so
yeah,
important for liability. You want your business
yeah,
to stand on its own. I mean, ideally, if you ever want to sell your business someday, you don't want this all linked to your social security number, or you want to give it to your kids or whatever.
right.
You need this to stand on its own.
Very much so. So that's why you also get a separate bank account. So you're not commingling your
Yep.
money with your client's money and all the other things.
Agreed. Okay, let's talk about Michelle. I want to shop it. Michelle, I want your 20% from Pottery Barn.
Hmm.
How do we get ahead of that?
I think part of it is just that educational aspect on the front end. So there's two parts. One is we
Yep.
walk our clients through a process. It's
Hmm.
the initial qualifying slash discovery call, and then we do what I think is the secret ingredient. It's the virtual meet and greet, and then we do the initial
Yep.
visit, and then the scope of work presentation. In the meet and greet and in the scope of work presentation, we're actually walking through a series of slides. And
Mm.
I have a visual that shares with them, here's the fees and the expenses, the investment, whatever you want to call it, that you can
Sure.
anticipate through our process, and
Mm.
they're relative in size. So your purchases are going to be larger than your design fee. And I literally tell them, here's how I make my profit is my
Nice.
design fee and selling the furniture. Here's the other fees that you can anticipate, like the receiver and procurement and the contractor. These are not this is not a profit center for me. But
Right.
this is what you can anticipate, because they don't know what a receiver is. They don't know that we're charging for procurement, things along that line. So we share it
Yep.
with them then. And we don't as much anymore, because thankfully as we've grown, we've become more
Yeah.
sophisticated, and we attract more sophisticated clients. So
Yep.
in the past, we used to share with them, hey, we do our best to sell the furniture to you below retail. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, we basically will tell them we sell it to you basically at maybe a little bit below retail, just depending on the vendor. But our
Yep.
clients are not looking for, the $50 off of something anymore. So
Yeah. We
for
have a
the
better client.
younger designers, that's a great way to get your foot in the door and to ease into the conversation with the client. If
Mm.
they ask, the answer is no.
Hmm.
So it comes back down to, how do we value ourselves and our services? And it's that insecurity. And I think a lot of it
Hmm.
comes down to it's either we're, as women and designers, just our hearts are oftentimes people pleasing. And we
Yes.
want to take care of people and we want to make them feel good. But at the end of the day, are you willing to do that in exchange for your own sanity, your own profitability, your family time? Like,
Hmm.
once you reframe it, and you have a hard time saying no, stop and think about, you're taking money out of you're taking food out of your children's mouth. You're not putting money into your children's college fund or whatever that looks like. And what I've done with clients back in the day is I
Mm.
tell them, well, first of all, this is my profit center. But secondly,
Hmm.
it's like, you don't go walk into a steakhouse, order a $60 steak, and ask them how much they paid for that piece of meat, do you? And then
Yeah.
do you ask them
Fair.
to charge less? or pass on part of their pricing. You don't, like, seriously, you can go buy a $15 bottle of wine at the grocery store and pay $50 for it at a restaurant. You don't ask them,
Absolutely.
like, I drink this stuff at home. I only pay $15 or $19 for it. Why are you charging me 50 or 60 or whatever that looks like? So by understanding that as the business owner, that you have the right to say no because you're a business owner, you're not just a quote unquote a designer. Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to sometimes distinguish because so many of us are solopreneurs.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you hit a very key point there, an extremely important point. And I would even take it one step further. You're not just hurting yourself, but you're hurting the industry, because now
Yes.
we're painting an expectation industry wide of, one, I can negotiate fees. Two, I should be getting your trade discounts. You don't ask your doctor for a discount on your medication. Right. Like, but of course he has samples back there, but you're going to the pharmacy and paying what you're paying. Same
Yeah.
idea. The steak analogy is great. I think it's so incredibly valuable because we need to start, this is again, educating your audience, educating your clients, but we have to stop creating the expectation that, oh, you can have a discounted design fee. Oh,
Right.
you can have discounted furniture. If they weren't buying the furniture from you, they would be buying it from a furniture store. Is that furniture store not going to mark it up even on the best Labor Day sale? Of course they are.
Absolutely. The difference is that we just have to stand in our power and say that's not my business model.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
oftentimes, I mean, seriously, our clients are professionals.
Yeah.
They're used to getting what they want. They're used to asking some difficult questions. That doesn't mean we
Fair.
have to say yes. So just
Ooh.
because they ask
Ooh, did
does
you guys
not
just
mean
hear that? Yeah, say that again, Michelle. It was so good.
Just because they ask doesn't mean we have to say yes.
Do you hear that, you guys? You have permission to say no. And it also, I think we're so afraid of saying no as women because we're afraid, one, back to people pleasing, they're not going to like us, or two, we're not going to close the sale. That is not the case. You can say no
Right.
and have them deeply respect that you're a woman of business because, like you said, most of them are professional and they appreciate business and go, okay, I'm tracking with you. You have your business. I have mine. I
Right.
can see why you wouldn't want to do that. I respect
But I had
that,
to
and I'll
ask.
do business. Right. But I had to ask. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
such a
that's
key
my
point.
husband. Yeah. He would ask. The answer is no. But it's not because am I allowed to swear?
Please.
It's not because he's
Keep
an
it a little real.
it's not because he's an asshole. Like, our
No.
clients are generally not, but we feel like it when they ask
Yeah.
and we're forced to say yes. But nobody's
Yes.
forcing us to say yes.
No. And what you are saying, them asking is not a reflection on you personally. I think as women, we have to get over that. They're not second guessing you personally. They're coming in to negotiate. It's a strategy on a business transaction. You don't
Right.
need to be offended. It's not a reflection on you. And by the same token, that gives you the power to say, I know who I am. I know what I can present to you. No, I'm not going to discount it because I know what you're
Right.
going to get. It's going to be that great procurement. It's going to be that awesome install, which a lot of people don't think about because you order a pillow from Pottery Barn. It shows up in a box, bubble wrapped at your door.
And it's just one click, put it in the cart and pay. It's not all of the other details that go into it.
True, right? Which is, we know, like, all of the ordering, the tracking made sure it arrived at the warehouse. It wasn't damaged. The box wasn't damaged. They can find it on install day. It ends up on the right couch on install day.
Yes.
Like, they aren't thinking through that until we explain that to them and show them the value add of what we're doing that justifies those fees.
Absolutely. Freaking lootly. Yes. But
Yeah.
a lot of the times, I think what I have seen
Yeah.
is that well, I've seen it in myself because I used to think that I needed to make the onboarding or the sales process easy for the client. The easier I made it on the client, and by ease, I mean like a one-page contract or
Yeah,
a quick turnaround and getting started. What that does is that takes the onus and it puts it on us to
unfairly.
yes, and to execute to meet their expectations. But if we don't set those expectations, then we're never going to meet what we don't know. And they don't know what they don't know because they watch it on TV and things are done over a commercial break. So a lot of it just
I
comes
wish my
down to us.
dinners got cooked over commercial break.
know.
Can we talk about meal planning over commercial break?
Where's
That's
Guy
falling
Fieri
flat at
when you
my
need them
house.
to show up?
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's such a struggle.
It's on us. We have to educate our clients enough that they understand. And also, Katie, like once you start saying yes to their negotiating, it doesn't end.
Right.
You have to.
You've
It's
fed
like
the
a
monster.
child. It's like a
Yes.
child.
And you
You
give
have
them a
to
cookie. Of course they want another one.
Absolutely nip
Yeah.
that baby in the bud. The answer's no,
Yeah.
kid.
Well, and it also really sets you apart. If they want to take that model for a test drive, go find a different designer, because then right there, you know that this is not your ideal client. Because you're right. They'll be nickel and diming you right down to that last piece of decor you put on the coffee table.
Absolutely.
Not worth it. Talk about
No.
timelines with me as far as like pricing, because I feel like that's a huge part of it too, is managing client timelines. And you alluded to it with like, yes, the whole project gets done over the commercial break.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, that's the hard part, is people have an expectation. Well, why would I let you design this piece of furniture if I can just walk down to the furniture store down the street, or I saw it at CB2 and it was really cute and I can just go get it today? Why can't I do that?
Well, you can. Go
There you
ahead.
go.
But you're not going to get my service involved with it. So that sounds really cocky, but for the most part,
No, it's just a clear process. It shows,
Yeah.
it doesn't sound cocky, I don't think at all, because it says I have a standard operating procedure that will produce a legit product, and that's what you came to me for. And if you want to deviate from that, I can't guarantee the outcome. And that's okay.
absolutely. And we address that on the very first call. So my first call is 15 to 20 minutes. This is what I teach. We do twice a year, rolling in the dough workshop. It's how to qualify, quote, and close high-end clients while you're baking the profit into your project. But one of the things that I teach in my program, and what we still do at ML Interiors Group, is that first call is internally, we call it a qualifying call. Are they qualified to work with us? Externally, we call it a discovery call. So if you're on my website, that's what it says. The qualifying is, what is your timeline and what is your budget? So if their timeline is I want this done by, May, and we know we're not going to be able to deliver it until fall, well, then we have that conversation on the front end, and I explain why. It's not gonna happen. So, and that's just, again, it goes back to educating the client. And sometimes they say, okay, well, that's great, I understand, but I'm going to keep looking. And it's like, great, best wishes. And part of it is I'll tell them exactly this, Katie. I understand that. That's what you want. But if I promised you that I could get it done, and if any other designer promises you that they can get it done, I'm going to disappoint you, and I'm going to embarrass myself.
Oh,
So-
I love that term. I'm going to disappoint you and embarrass myself. No client's going to want that.
Or I'll tell them I'm going to piss you off because I'm going to promise you that I can get it done. So it just kind of depends on the client and the rapport we have. Do I say disappoint or do I say piss you off? But either way, they get the point. And again, they'll hang up and they'll thank me. Same thing with the budget. If they don't have enough money, I tell them that, because who wants to engage? And I've done this before when I didn't have the data or the understanding, and there were no business coaches at the time. I would drag clients along on this terrible journey, and I would disappoint them, and I would embarrass myself. So it's not worth it.
It's so not worth it. And I think there's so many designers, when you're starting out, you're just scared and you need that client, and then you need the one after that client. You're building that pipeline and you're afraid to. But like, the biggest thing I hear you saying that I think is so important is don't bastardize your process. Don't give up on your ideal client in the name of making your revenue.
Oh
You
my gosh.
cannot do it, because you'll end up going down. It will end up costing you far more. It's better to be holding steady at zero than to take on a client that you're going to disappoint, that's going to cost you more money, that's going to just sit tight. They're coming. Revisit your marketing.
Right. I think there's a lot of that. But Katie, playing
Michelle.
the Katie game.
We love the bug game.
But with that, I will say I also understand that if you need to make your rent, that you just sometimes you have to say yes. You just have to do so with boundaries. And with that, like it's, I take this back to dating. Okay. Funny. Like, if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you can't afford a nice dinner, you might go out with a guy that you're really not interested in just to have a really nice dinner. Okay.
Michelle, are you speaking from personal experience?
Yeah. Like maybe when I was in my 20s.
Very familiar.
It's It's not very familiar because it was like what is it, 3 decades ago? Holy cow,
Yeah,
I can't
we
believe
don't
that.
have to quantify
It was,
that. I did not ask for that.
it was a long time ago, but it is similar in that respect. So there have been clients that we've had to take on so that I could make payroll, or so that
Sure.
I could cover the overhead in the studio, or whatever that looks like. But you have to do so with boundaries. And that is, here's a solid scope of work. Here's exactly what I'm going to do. Here's exactly how I'm going to do it. And these are the boundaries. So you
Mm-hmm.
still you can still have your own power when you step into
Mm-hmm.
this area that you don't desire to be in. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if there's
Mm-hmm.
any way, shape, or form that you can avoid that altogether and just
Sure.
say no to the good, you make room for the great. Because
Ooh, I love
honestly,
that.
it's
I love
so
that.
true. It is so very true. And it's
Say
so
no to the good to make room for the great. That's a
right.
great nugget.
And y'all, it's scary and
Yeah.
it's
Scary as
it's
all hell, especially if you're just
counterintuitive.
starting.
It's
Yeah.
counterintuitive. But I also believe that when you have that, when you can step into that place of power and
Yeah.
you own your own badassness, like
Yes.
this is who I am and this is what I do.
Be
Okay.
unapologetic. Your people will
Unapologetically
show
about
up.
it. It attracts people that are going to respect you in a different way.
Agreed.
And those are the
Agreed.
individuals that you love working with, that will refer
Mhm.
people to you, that will bring you back for the next phase in their home, or their next home, or a second home. It
Yeah.
just that's where the joy lies, is working with the individuals who
Mm.
appreciate and respect what you do.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's you should have joy in your business. If you don't, there's a whole something else going on there.
Hmm.
But if you're doing what you love and you're doing it with the right people, it is a
And you're getting paid well
blast.
for it.
Well, I think that does add to the joy. They say money doesn't buy
Hmm.
happiness, but I found it really does help.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, but it actually makes a significant difference, I have found, and I think it
Yeah.
can buy happiness. Yes, you should be making money at this and having fun empowering other people and giving
Hmm.
them beautiful homes and empowering a great team. And when you're doing that, I am so sorry,
Oh,
but life is a blast.
absolutely. And it's not all about money, but you're not
Right.
trading your time for money anymore.
Yeah,
And when I
that's a
was
key
working
point.
hourly, and when you're working hourly, you are literally trading your time for money. There's only so many hours in the week you can work, and there's
Yep.
only a certain hourly rate that most of us can quote
Yeah.
unquote justify. So, Vincente Wolf and Nate Berkus and like these celebrity people, if they're working on an hourly basis, of course they can say I'm charging $1,000 an hour because I'm Nate
Sure.
Berkus and I don't know what he
Sure.
charges, or Kelly Wersler or any of these people. Like
Sure.
I have no idea what their pricing structure is. So for the record, Nate, if you're listening, I'm just giving the
We
disclaimer.
love you, Nate, and go get
Yeah, exactly. But
it.
if I were to come to the table and say, yes, I'm charging $1,000 an hour, they're going to laugh at me and turn around and walk away.
Well, especially because then they're going to take and match that up to what they're making hourly and go, are you
Yes,
kidding me? That's the first thing they're going
exactly.
to do is
You're
compare
fluffing
their
pillows
rates
and
to.
picking out paint.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, and
Yeah.
you can't trade time for money and be
If you
profitable.
do figure out how to create more time, please let me know. I'm there for that creative endeavor and I will come alongside you because that's not, we haven't cracked.
Yeah, and
Talk
then
to
we'll go buy
me.
our island in Fiji.
Oh my gosh, yes. Or the Maldives. I just want to float.
Mm.
I have this like dream that when the children go to college and I drop the last one off, I'm just going to go lay on my back in the Maldives for about 2 weeks, just floating in the water until I remember my name and who I am.
I think that
Because
sounds pretty darn
for
good.
all the mompreneurs out there, I don't know if you can relate, but sometimes you're like, who am I and where am I and why am I in the pantry for the 95th time today because some kid screamed at me? And all you're thinking about, back to the like shaving your legs and thinking about your clients, you're in the
Hmm.
pantry thinking about your clients, right?
Yeah,
Not the
exactly.
graham crackers and everything else. Talk to me about value-based pricing. This is a huge concept. This
Hmm.
might be a new term to some of our audience. What is it? How do you get it to work for you?
It is the flat fee model. It
It
is a
is. Okay.
value-based flat fee model.
That's what we're calling it.
Yeah, value-based, and that's how we sell it to our clients. Is that we
That's the term.
how do you price? Well, we price with a value-based model.
Yep.
Also, you could call it a flat fee, and we base it
Yep.
on the number of square feet in the
Yep.
space and the level of complexity involved. For example,
Mm,
a
yep.
kitchen
Break it down.
renovation is much more complex than a guest bedroom.
Agreed.
Okay.
Let's start
So
with
the
plumbing and
dollar,
electrical alone.
right? So the dollar
Yeah.
per square foot for a
Mm-hmm.
kitchen design
Mm-hmm.
is exponentially higher than a dollar per square foot for a guest bedroom decorating.
Yep. Yep.
So that's what we mean by a level of complexity. It's going to be based on the outcomes that they want it to, that they want. There's some
Mm.
clients that, think about this. There's some clients that are just very simple. I just need this place
Yep.
redecorated. Just take some of what I have. And this is back where I started. Take what I have and let's just add to it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's much easier. But if we're starting from scratch, well, now granted, that's much easier too. But if we're starting from scratch, it's
Yeah.
different. So what
Yeah.
level of complexity
Yep.
does this particular design have? And
So we're
that's,
marrying up the complexity of the project with the
mm-hmm,
complexity of the client to
mm-hmm,
come up with a flat fee. But then let's talk about margin, because we need, and
mm-hmm.
margin not in the sense of profitability, but
Mm-hmm.
margin in the sense of wiggle room for the
Oh,
unexpected. On
hell yeah.
every project, there is a
Mm-hmm.
sticking point, and it is the area that you're like, why are we here having a sticking point on this
Yes.
item? Right? It's always the
Mm-hmm.
one lamp that of course the client fell in love with and has been discontinued, and now we have to go find it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
How do you plan for the unplanned? Because it's gonna happen.
It is going to happen. And I think what I have found is because everything that could go wrong has gone wrong in my business,
Yes.
I just make sure that my booty is covered contractually with a lot of it.
Yeah.
So let's say there is something that is back ordered or it's discontinued or whatever the case may be. We educate the client on the front end. So when it comes time to sign the contract, I
Mm-hmm.
walk them through all of the details. Like, this is what happens if you shop me. This is what happens if something's back ordered. This is what happens if the price goes up. This is what happens if the price goes down. All of the contingencies. Now, we don't see everything at any rate, and things do happen. The fee covers what we can control. And what I mean by that is once the design is done,
Right.
then maybe procurement is a
Yep.
separate process. The construction implementation is a separate process. And instead of building that into the flat fee, because again, you don't know what's going to happen when you open this wall? Are you going to have to redo some of the design?
Yeah.
Right? Or are you going to
100%.
have
Or
to,
is the GC a complete pain in the ass and is
right,
like coming to the job site maybe once every
drunk?
month, and the superintendent, yes, have we all not had that happen? And you're like, really? Are we even sure we're using the right
Yeah.
materials here?
Exactly. So
Yes.
those things are charged differently, but the actual design fee is all the time it takes for us to get the job done.
Yeah. The items you can control.
Yes, and it is, let me bring this to you. Now, we build in revisions
You
per
have to.
room, like how many do you have per room, and then what's the consequence after that?
Yeah.
So there has to be a pain point associated with the what else is there, what else is there, what else is there, what else is there, client. Okay, you get 2 what else's is there for that one particular room, and then after that, every next what else is there,
Yeah.
because I've looked at everything.
I
Like,
know.
I've
When you're
looked at
hiring me
everything.
to look at everything, I'm looking at
Right.
everything all the time. I'm laying in bed at night, flipping through the latest magazines coming to the house. I'm
Right.
looking like I'm living in this
Instagram
world. You have to
and
trust. Well, I think
yes.
that's a key point. They start thinking that we're their Pinterest board. So if I can scroll through and pin 100 things in Pinterest, I'm expecting you to propagate 100 things for me like my Pinterest board does. No,
Right.
I'm not Pinterest. I've pre-sorted for you.
Amen.
And we're down to the good stuff here, sister. This is the Godiva. I have found you the Godiva. I'm not bringing you Hershey's. No offense, Hershey's.
There you go.
And you have to accept that.
Oh, when you're in Texas, I'll have to take you to Kate Weir. Amazing
I'm there.
chocolates. Yes.
I'm here for all things chocolate.
Yes, squirrel. But with that, it's also, this is what we put in the front end, is that
Yeah.
it's a combination of how much, like your overall budget how you live. So yeah, I could find you a beautiful such and such, but it's not going to fit in your budget. Your kids are going to break it within the first 3 days. And if not, it's going to be your big dog with the tail wagging. So
And
there's
you'll
a lot
cry.
of reasons. Yes. And so it's the budget, it's the scale, it's pulling, you get the entire room together. If you want to
Yeah.
build it around something, that's different. But
Agreed.
in that, it's just it's the education of the client, because again, I
Yeah.
don't believe they're asked. They just
No,
don't
they
know
don't
what they
know.
don't know.
Yeah. And one thing that when we did residential too, I would just start with one room until we really figured out. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we'll still do residential art procurement when the budget's right. And we
Mm-hmm.
always just start them in one room to say, yep, we're going to give you 2 rounds of revisions in this one room as we really dial this in and before we
Mm-hmm.
pull it out to the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the house. And
Right.
that has been such a great thing because sometimes they don't even know their own style, or they'll use a
Mm-hmm.
term. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'm boho chic. And you show them boho chic and they're like, no. And you're like, okay,
Right.
so what you think is boho
Mm-hmm.
chic is not actually what's happening over here. You want to
Absolutely.
call it that, but we have to talk.
And yeah, and it's so true. So I keep telling you, like, all the mistakes I've made. We used to go ahead and we used to be
I
like
love it.
HGTV, where we would
Yeah.
meet the client and then we would disappear for a month or two, actually maybe just a
Hmm.
month, and we would just be able to poop this out real quickly and come back to them, and we hadn't nailed it. So
Yep.
now we take a lot longer to
Yep.
create a design, and there's so many more conversations with the
Hmm.
client and sharing with them different, like, here's kind of the vision, like, what are open wood shelves? Like, back in the day, nobody knew what
Mm.
that was. So then
Mm.
you're bringing an image to them and you're saying, this is the inspiration. What do you think about this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, now I know what you're talking about, because I was thinking raw wood on my wall or something like that, two by
Right.
fours. And then, bringing a variety of different fabrics. How does this feel? What do you think about this? So we have a
Mm.
lot more in the interview process. And
Mm.
we're, in fact, at my firm, just this past Wednesday or Thursday, we're even elevating that to more of an experience, bringing them into
Yep.
the studio and making
Yep.
it a very intentional, standardized process
I love that.
across the board.
I hate to use the term cattle shoot, but it's the one that comes to mind from my growing
Hmm.
up in Montana years. But I think sometimes they will wander as far and as wide as you will let them.
Absolutely.
And if you can put them in your processes, if you can put them in the shoot, bring them into the studio, give
Hmm.
them the imagery, walk them down the path, when they get to the
Right.
destination, it may feel like we're limiting them, but in reality, they're going to be happier with the end result. Time
Yeah.
and time again, yeah,
It's
all
like
the
a kid
science
going into a
shows.
candy store.
Yes. The
You
fewer the
can't have it
options,
all
the
because you're going
happier
to throw
people
up.
are.
Yeah.
Right. And then they just sit there and they cry because they're overwhelmed. Right. Instead
Hmm.
of saying you can choose the caramel apple or you can pick the Snickers bar. Which are you
Right.
going to get today?
Hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm excited. I'm getting something. Like, this is great. Like, this is
Absolutely.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't have it
Big
all. And
difference.
and it'll look like somebody threw up
So
in
true.
your, yeah.
But that gets back to making sure you have these processes in place. And I love what you said about the conversations. I think that's another really key nugget because, as you mentioned, the best marketing in the world is when they hear about you or someone hears about you from a
Hmm.
previous client, right? And they're picking
Right.
up the phone to call you, or they buy that second house, or they whatever. When you use this, not just as I got the job and I'm going to complete it for you, but as a
Hmm.
let's build this relationship. Let's have the conversations. One, you're going to know I care about your end result. I really do
Yeah.
care. Even though we have these processes and that may feel like a sterile term to you, it's
Hmm.
because I care that we actually reach something achievable for you.
Well, that, and going back to the fact that professionals are hiring us, we're speaking their
Yeah,
language.
absolutely.
We are speaking their
Absolutely.
language. So if we show up as a professional and we're dealing with professionals, it's a business transaction that is
Agreed.
very enjoyable, and there does
Mm-hmm.
become a component of friendship or compassion, or and I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's also where you and I might be exactly the same price point, same exact processes, but who are they going to get along with differently? So
Oh,
being your
yeah.
own authentic self is
Yeah.
what seals the deal.
It totally does. Well, and it
Hmm.
sets you apart from the competition because I think
Hmm.
for the designers that are always about closing the deal, closing the deal, closing the deal, moving on, closing the deal,
Right.
clients feel that. We are human beings, we're
Hmm.
emotive, and usually professionals have a high emotional intelligence. They're going to read that as well.
Hmm. And this is, I mean, in the residential sector, y'all, we know a lot about your stuff. Like we know what needs to go in those nightstands and where, so we are designing around it. Like
Right?
there is a very personal
Very.
factor that comes to
Yeah.
this.
Yes.
We get the
Yes.
key to their house sometimes, and we're in and out when we need to be.
I will,
Hmm.
we might have to edit this out later, but I will never forget the residential client that took me into her bedroom, and she didn't have a headboard. And there was a hole in the wall the size of her head, where I'm like, I have a pretty good feeling I know why that happened, but I'm not going to talk about it right now. We're just going to talk about patching that drywall and getting you a headboard.
Probably
Right?
upholstered.
Yeah, upholster would be ideal. I have a very strong feeling. But I was like, I mean, like, I blush now, but I totally blushed, and I was like, oh gosh, I'm just going to pretend I'm not seeing what's going on that wall for a hot minute.
Yes. So
Whew,
they have to be
yeah,
comfortable enough to let you in the bedroom.
let you in the bedroom and explain. We'll just patch that drywall and we won't talk about why that happened. Just saying, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. That's
Oh,
funny.
oh,
Yeah.
it's so good. Michelle, this is a great conversation. One final thought that you wish that you could share with designers who
Hmm.
are afraid to change their pricing model and are just scared. If we're saying, but Michelle, I am so
Yeah.
scared to do this. And I don't have the luxury in my firm. Like, we are living paycheck to paycheck in my firm. I don't have the luxury of making mistakes with my pricing. What do I do?
I'll tell you, I'm going to answer that with a story.
Mm,
Okay, so
please do.
when we first went from hourly to a flat fee, I remember sitting across from a repeat client. I had
Hmm.
explained to him, hey, I've changed things up. It's going to be a flat fee. I'm tired of doing the invoicing and so forth. He was like, that sounds like a great idea. I'm here for
Mm,
that, etc. So Debbie and I, she's been with me at the design firm for 10 plus years. And so we were going through this. We typed this whole thing up. We came up with the presentation. We sat down
mm,
across from Alan and his then fiance. And I walked him through everything. So we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And here's the total. Okay, Katie, the total was $10,000 for the design fee. Okay. I was
okay.
sitting there nearly peeing down my leg because I was scared to
Terrified.
death to
Yeah.
slide a $10,000 design fee across the table. Okay. So
Mm,
my, so
mm,
my, my word to the designers is that be
mm.
scared and do it anyway. Okay.
Oh, that's
Al-
life, girls. Get
yeah.
after it. Yes.
Alan
Be scared and
Alan
do it
signed
anyway.
it. Alan signed it.
Great.
And here's the deal. Looking back,
Yeah.
the job was easily a $60,000 design fee. My
Ah.
ignorance, but we still got the job. I was able to cover the bills, to do
Mm,
all the things. We weren't as sophisticated. My overhead was different. But now what I'm saying is that
mm.
you learn. You are going to make mistakes sometimes, but you know what? That was still a profitable mistake. Okay. Did I leave
Yeah.
$50,000 on the table? Yeah, but you know what? I wasn't sophisticated enough to deliver an experience that goes with that total.
$60,000. Yeah.
Right. So $10,000 was still baby designer me. I wasn't shopping at Home Goods anymore, but I didn't have the processes to implement the design as smoothly as I do now.
Mm,
We sell an
mm.
experience in addition to the result.
Oh, that's
So
so good.
it's like going to the Mercedes dealership versus the Honda dealership.
Yes.
And
Every
nothing knocking the
time.
Honda, but like Mercedes
No,
doesn't smell like tires. They've got better coffee. You can get, you
they
get better
have
music in the
apps.
background.
They have
Yes.
snacks. They
Yes.
even give, like, we were was it at the Toyota dealership when my daughter was born? It was a Toyota Lexus.
Hmm.
They have it a shop, and smartest marketing ever. They gave her a voucher. They handed over to my child faux money to go spend in the gift shop that
Oh,
had
that's
great
cool.
things.
Yeah.
I was like, brilliant. Yeah, totally different
Hmm.
experience than
Right.
going down to
So,
the
so
used car
my,
lot.
so first of all, a shameless plug is get
Do
yourself a
it.
business coach. Okay.
Absolutely.
In the Interior Design Business Bakery, which is my 1 year program, this is what we
Yep.
teach. I
Yep.
actually hand you my pricing schedule and we work through it based on your experience and then you can elevate it. Okay. So if you don't want to get a coach, then what you need to do is go get your data. Okay.
Yeah.
And go run the numbers and figure
Yep.
out what you need to charge by the square foot, and then probably close to double it,
Yep.
because
Yep.
we never value our services as well as they at what they're worth, because
Agreed.
we interchange ourselves with our services. So just
That's
start
wise.
practicing. Keep your
Yep.
data, figure out how many hours. And speaking of hours, you've got an internal hourly rate. So,
Hmm.
Katie, our internal hourly rate at ML Interiors Group, I think it varies anywhere between $300 and $400 an hour.
Yep.
I
Yep.
could not sell that to a client
Right.
if
No.
I were, well, maybe if I
Hmm.
was, Kelly Worsler or something. Of course I could triple, quadruple, whatever that. But my
Right.
point is that you cross-reference that and you build that margin in for the things that do
Yeah.
go wrong.
Yeah.
So it's not just my $75 an hour.
Right.
Okay. It's all the other stuff. You can build that in to your flat fee. And if they ask, what's your hourly rate? I don't have one.
No.
Like
I'm here to
that's my
get the job done
internal.
correctly. Yeah.
Yes, that is my internal hourly rate. And
Yeah.
that's on average because we have different people that we're paying and things like that. So there's a lot
Sure.
of work that goes into it. But y'all, if you're still working
Mhm.
hourly,
Yeah.
just start thinking about
Yep.
making that switch and run the
Yep.
numbers on your most recent project, the one before that and the one before that, and take your hourly rate,
Mm.
double it, and figure out how many hours that was. And you could start with that.
Yep. It's a good starting point. That's a
Hmm.
great algorithm to just put
Hmm.
everybody through out of the gate if you're unsure of where to start. I
Hmm.
think it's so critical. Don't
Oh.
devalue yourself especially as a woman. Do not
Hmm.
do it. You are worth so much and you have so much creativity in you and you are giving your clients the gift of your time, which you don't get back, your
Hmm.
emotional energy, which drives that creativity. And don't undercut that. And don't undercut the industry either by it's you're not, and I think it's easier almost for women when we frame it this way. It's not that you're just undercutting yourself, but you're actually taking your other sisters and designers out here
Hmm.
and undercutting them. Because if this client doesn't choose you, they're going to go try to negotiate with somebody else, and we
Right.
just don't want that to be an option.
It's so true. And I think part of it is we take for granted our skills, our talents,
Mm,
our blessings, and we
yeah,
change people's lives. We don't just
yeah,
make a home pretty. We
yeah,
create a sanctuary where they begin and end their day as their best person, so they can
yeah,
go out into their world and be their best person.
yeah,
We
yeah,
we create a space that feels like a hug. How can you
yeah.
undervalue a hug?
Nope,
We all need
can't
one.
do it. It's
Hmm.
so true. I mean, a 1 minute hug is shown to release an immense amount of oxytocin. Walking into your home should do the same. It should be
Ah,
the spot. Yeah, it
yes,
should hit the
agreed.
spot. Great conversation. Thank you, Michelle, for your time. Love and
Oh my
adore as
gosh.
always.
Right back at you. I appreciate you having me.
My pleasure. Hey, y'all, welcome to the Coaching Corner. So, you've heard this great conversation with Michelle about residential design and the reason we want to do value pricing for our clients. By the same token, I want to take and extract that and bring it back to commercial design. So, I'm full disclosure, and this is why I wanted to have this conversation with you. We actually do hourly pricing at our firm because we do commercial design and because the depth, breadth, width, all of it of commercial is not as standardized. I feel like, and you may disagree, and that's great. Write me, email me, tell me about it as residential design. And so, if you're playing in the world of commercial design, and if your firm is positioned in the world of design and you're using or commercial design and you're using an hourly pricing model, I want to hear or want you to hear me that you are not alone and that is okay. That is where we have hung out, especially in commercial projects, because we have so many decision makers involved and the budgets are such that the amount of time can vary so dramatically. It is really hard to get your arms around a flat fee model for commercial. And so I wanted to chime in with that. That being said, if you're not making enough money in your commercial business, even on an hourly schedule, then you need to reach out to me and let's do a strategy session about it because you should be. You deserve it. Thanks for joining me for this Coaching Corner.